Well, it's been a while. Let me see if I remember how to do this.
One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them.
And then we had the title reveal, right?
Oh, man, that was great.
Just in January when Amazon finally gave us a title, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is that they have cast a very diverse cast.
Yeah.
Not everybody is, lily white. And they talked about that very specifically. They said it felt natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like because, as this executive producer said, Tolkien's for everyone. His stories are about his fictional races doing their best work when they leave the isolation of their own cultures and come together. And
Absolutely.
I think that was something we were very pleased to hear.
Yeah.
We get to see a black woman playing a dwarf princess. We get to see a Puerto Rican guy playing one of the Sylvan Elves.
Sylvan Elf, yeah. Sir Lenny Henry is one of the Harfoots, a fantastic actor.
He's going to be great in that.
Yeah. I think it's great. I'm excited about it, and I think that
I am too.
It is very true to Tolkien.
Now, who are these guys, and why are there silly little caricatures gracing your monitor or cell phone screen or whatever you're watching this on? Well, in Tolkien podcasting circles, for whatever that's worth, they're quite famous. They may be the top of the heap. This is Alan and Sean from the Prancing Pony podcast, for those who don't know. And here they are hobnobbing, or should I say hobbit-nobbing, with Merry and Pippin.
All right. Well, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with any of the news of Amazon's Rings of Power series or anything like that. We certainly have. But we'd love to ask you, since we've got you here, if you had one piece of advice for the actors who are appearing in that new series. This new generation of actors about to bring Middle-earth to life. What advice would you have?
In order to avoid seeming like I'm picking solely on Alan and Sean from the Prancing Pony podcast, let me point out the obvious here that they're not the only ones making these claims that Tolkien is for everyone. Black hobbits are true to Tolkien. And the Rings of Power should reflect what the world actually looks like. This is a chorus, a cacophony, whatever you want to call it, coming from all the corners of the internet and mainstream media, news outlets. It's nothing that I probably have to inform you about, but let's just go over some of them to give you an idea of what people are saying. And it's almost like they're getting their marching orders from up on high because they're all kind of making the same noises. Imagine that. So here's a Twitter user who says, Tolkien is for everyone, and I hope I make that clear on my account. You are all welcome here. They have all kinds of hashtags for this. The $1 billion that supposedly went into the production of this series, I'm pretty sure that 3/4 of it went into PR and damage control and getting news outlets to say the right thing. And I mean, if you go on to any news aggregator like yahoo.com's news list, article list, it's flooded with positive reviews, criticism of anyone who criticizes the series, and so on. But maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, as I usually do. Here's another Twitter user who says, waiting for the next episode of The Rings of Power. Okay. It is glorious, epic, and poetic. The perfect fairy tale for dreamers. I kind of don't disagree with that, but I don't think she has the same connotation in mind that I do. Please ignore the naysayers. Listen to Neil himself instead. Now, who's Neil himself? That's Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman is a Jewish fantasy writer who I believe has criticized Tolkien for being racist in the past, but I may be wrong about that. I'm not sure. There are so many people like David Brin, who is a sci-fi author and maybe even a fan. David Brin, I've talked about him in previous Tolkien videos. He wrote a Salon article back in the aughts, in 2000s, excoriating Tolkien over his racism, essentially. Now, he said that Tolkien was an enemy of progress, and I'm not going to get into that here because I've done so in previous videos, and you can go look at my video list to hunt that one down. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that Neil Gaiman has done the same thing, just exactly as David Brin. And let's just say they're both part of the same tribe. So shocking there. Special thanks to those involved in the casting. Diversity opens the joy of Tolkien to everyone. This is so ridiculous. I'm an obsessive Tolkien fan, and this world should be open and representative of everyone. Sure, The Lord of the Rings was written in a different time for a predominantly white European audience, but fantasy has grown and become inclusive, and it's about time we did too. Interesting. So all of fantasy, or just the fantasy that was written for predominantly white European audiences? Well, we'll investigate that as well. And The Hollywood Reporter says the Rings of Power stars are speaking out about racism directed at the cast. We stand together against the relentless racism, threats, harassment, and abuse some of our castmates of color are being subjected to. We refuse to ignore it or tolerate it. And the headline or caption is Rings of Power cast slams racist threats against performers. We're looking at a picture of Galadriel in the middle, Gil-galad, the last Noldor king, they're not high elves technically, the Vanyar are the high elves, but they're in Middle Earth, they're the high elves, right? Because there aren't any Vanyar in Middle Earth. So he's the last high elf king. And over on the right there, looking very, elven bugman-like, is like, quote, young, unquote, Elrond. In the Second Age, Elrond was not young, but they made him, he looks like a 12-year-old bugman to me. But anyway, so very important main characters, and they're all white, but Tolkien is for everyone. Here's somebody with a very interesting Twitter handle. If you believe that Tolkien wrote a fantasy fictional body of work about different races and never intended them to embody a variety of skin tones, you're the one who's a racist. LotR on Prime may not be a story for everyone, but the casting is perfect. More diversity, please. And what is going on with this avatar? I will apologize in advance for subjecting you to this, but this should give you an idea of who the Rings of Power enjoyers actually are. And let's move on from that nightmare. Tolkien is for everyone. The Rings of Power's Southlands cast on pressure, authenticity, and accessibility. I don't know. As a Tolkien fan, I don't think pressure, authenticity, I care about authenticity, but these magical people pictured here, I don't know if they're... Do you think any of them actually read the books? That's what I would like to know. Can someone out there in a reporter, someone out there in the mainstream media, can somebody actually ask these people if they've ever read the books? And if you go to any of their Twitter accounts, like the directors, like for instance, J.A. Bayona, who I think directed the first episode in the series, maybe more. I'm just FYI, I am not going to be watching this series. I thought I might try to hate watch it for free, but I know it's gonna make me want to smash my TV. So I can't even be bothered to hate watch it. But anyway, J.A. Bayona, for instance, and many of the actors and actresses, for instance, the woman playing Tarmiriel, if you go onto their Twitter timelines, there's nothing about Tolkien. These people are not fans of Tolkien. They're fans of the money that Amazon is giving them. I mean, who wouldn't be, of course? But they're definitely not fans of Tolkien. So there's that. And let's move away from Twitter here. Oh, look at that. Here's Elijah Woods in the middle, Dominic Monaghan on the left, and Billy Boyd, Frodo, Merry, and Pippin. And they're wearing an interesting shirt. It looks like the shirt has Feanorian script on it, or Tengwar. Now, I'm not enough of a Tolkien spurg to know for sure what's supposed to be written on those shirts. I think it's the caption of the t-shirt selling site there. You are all welcome here. And of course, we have multicolored or multiracial ears, multi-skin tones. There only seems to really be one white ear, though, on that shirt. That's interesting. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it sure looks that way to me. And here is Orlando Bloom joining in on the chorus of how wonderful the diversification is in Rings of Power. Our world, this is in Rolling Stone, our world has never been all white. Lord of the Rings cast stands in solidarity following racist backlash. Now, I know I'm going to piss off the people who really love Peter Jackson's films, but from now on, don't tell me how wonderfully based and awesome Peter Jackson's films and the actors who participated are. I just don't want to hear it. Here they are, showing their true colors. Our world was never all white. Wow. Thanks for the brilliant and insightful update there, Orlando Bloom and Elijah Woods and all you guys from the Peter Jackson films, because I never knew that. Whenever anyone claims that Tolkien wrote tales for white Europeans, they are automatically therefore saying Europe is the entire world. How did you get from point A to point B there? I mean, that's not at all projection on your part because you're the kind of people who constantly make illogical leaps and presume the worst for no apparent reason. Now, if you follow my gaming channel, and shame on you if you don't, you know that I'm a fan of a video game series called Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's a fictional and often mystical strategy game take on the post-Han Dynasty war-torn era in China. You could even argue that it's not unlike the Lord of the Rings of China. And much like Tolkien's work, there have been many on-screen adaptations made. So let's just take a look, and you can find those series on YouTube and on BitChute if you're interested. I think it's a pretty good game, but I'll leave that up to you. So let's take a look at the cast for some of these productions for Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Here's a musical. I don't know how popular musicals are in China, but perhaps this is very popular. The IMDb rating for this one is in the 200,000s. I don't go to IMDb enough to be in the know for the ratings. Anyway, doesn't matter. What's important is the cast. And it stars people with the names like Ji Zhao Feng and Wei Kang Li. And if I'm getting close to the actual pronunciation, it'll be a miracle. Bao Su Zhao, and so on. I don't really think we're going to find different sounding names for this production in its cast. I don't know. They're only listing 3 people here. It could be because it's a musical. They all play different parts, and who knows. But there was a TV series not too long ago produced in China. And let's take a look at the cast for that. If I can scroll down here. Wow. We're seeing more unpronounceable names that look pretty much all Chinese or at least Asian to me. That's interesting. So just for the nitpickers who will squeal that I'm only coming up with one non-white or foreign example or non-Tolkien or non-European example, let's take a look at the Mahabharata. That is the larger mythical epic from which we get smaller bites of Asian Indian fantasy or myths or legends like the Bhagavad Gita. I think I'm right about that. I think the Bhagavad Gita came from the Mahabharata. And let's look at the names in the cast for it. We're seeing, let's see, that's writing credits. Okay, here we go. Here's the cast. Saurabh Raj Jain, Shahir Sheikh Pooja Sharma, Aham Sharma, Arpit Ranka, Praneet Bhatt. Okay, you get it. Arav Chowdhury, Rohit Bharadwaj. Not looking terribly diverse are these casts. I mean, it's actually looking to me like they're almost perfectly racially homogenous, the cast for these myths and legends and tales from China and East Asia. Harkening back to the words of the Prancing Pony podcast co-host Alan, do any of these casts reflect what the world actually looks like? Because Tolkien stories and their adaptations have to do that. Tolkien is for everyone. Why isn't the Mahabharata for everyone? Why isn't Romance of the Three Kingdoms for everyone? It's very strange that, I mean, the world isn't all Chinese or all Asian Indian, is it? It's never been, right? It's the world has never been all white, right? So when you want white characters to play in Tolkien, that's what you're reminded of. How come Asian Indians aren't getting this backlash? How come they're not being attacked and being told that the world isn't all Asian Indian? Why are some people's tales and legends and myths and fables and so on exempt from that odd diversification rule? Actually, let me rephrase that. Where are the Puerto Rican Liu Beis and Zhang Feis? Where is the Black or African Krishna in this tale, in the Mahabharata? And what I really want to ask Andy Jassy, the Jewish CEO of Amazon, is when do we get an Amazon Prime Video remake of the Ten Commandments, released on the 7th of Adar? Now that's the anniversary of Moses' death on the Jewish calendar. You know, just like The Rings of Power was released on the anniversary of Tolkien's death. When do we get the version of the Ten Commandments released on the date of Moses' death with a black guy playing Moses? I mean, the world isn't all Jewish, Andy Jassy. So what's with the glaring lack of $1 billion Amazon epic with a black Moses? So now that we've clearly established that only white people's tales have to be diversified, let's explore whether or not the Rings of Power producers and directors and actors and all the series enjoyers out there squealing with delight over black hobbits and Puerto Rican elves and black female dwarves, let's explore whether or not they're truly committed to their claim that Tolkien is for everyone, that the Rings of Power should reflect the real world. And to do that, let's look at what characters are actually being played by real-life people of color. Well, there seem to be quite a few, like Arondir, who cannot be found in the books, the characters, that is, that series creators have poofed into existence anyway. I know there's a big to-do over hobbits being poofed into existence in the Second Age, which they probably were not around until the Third Age, or at least they don't appear in the books until the Third Age. I know there's a big to-do over that. But my bigger problem is the fact that Tolkien has a whole legendarium of characters, but the show creators decided to make new ones out of whole cloth. And I guess that's because, in their opinion, Tolkien did not know how to craft good, strong characters. So showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay felt they needed to make up for Tolkien's glaring lack of character creation skill and make new ones we've never heard of, like Sir Lenny Henry here playing a black Harfoot hobbit, and the whole to-do over whether or not they can use the word hobbit. I don't care about that either. So it seems that almost all the magical people roles are non-canon or missing from Tolkien's writing. Except for one, like I said, I didn't watch the tales. As far as I can tell, there's only really one person of color character that's from the books, or character from the books that's being played by a person of color. And that would be Tar Miriel. She is one of the queens of Numenor. Now, I think the total number of pages that the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings, let's forget the Hobbit for now, but you could throw it in there. It's probably would add like 200 or 300 pages. But the more serious tales, the more adult tales that Tolkien wrote, Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings, the legendarium that they amount to is somewhere around 1,500 pages. So Amazon has decided to make one of the characters within that legendarium, that 1,500 page legendarium, played by a person of color. So it must be a very important character, right? Tarmiriel. I mean, they wouldn't give the only person of color playing someone actually from the books a small role, would they? I mean, Tolkien is for everyone, right? So Tarmiriel must be a very dynamic, a very important character in the books, right? Let's take a look at how many sentences Tolkien decided to devote to Tarmiriel. And Tarmiriel, I believe she may have been, it may be coincidence that she's named after Feanor's mother, or she may have gotten her name from Feanor's mother. It's not really clear, but we're going to ignore references to the single word Miriel. We just want to look for Tarmiriel. Oh, it looks like we're going to have a little trouble doing that. So let's zip past Miriel Serendai. All right, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And let's get to Tarmiriel. Miriel, Feanor's mother, is mentioned quite a lot because she is an important character. So we'll get past her names. Here we go. Okay. So now we're into the Numenor or the Alcalabeth part of the Silmarillion. And we've got one sentence for Tarmiriel. We've got a second sentence for Tarmiriel. And that's it. So the Amazon producers gave all the people of color characters that don't even exist in Tolkien's world, except for one. And out of 1,500 pages, she has 2 sentences. Let's read those 2 sentences because I think it's a worthy effort. And it came to pass that Tar Palantir grew weary of grief and died. He had no son, but a daughter only, whom he named Miriel in the elven tongue. And to her, now by right and the laws of Númenóreans, came the scepter. And there's a little bit of mention of her here, but Pharazôn took her to wife against her will, doing evil in this, and evil also in the laws of Númenor, in that the laws of Númenor did not permit the marriage. Okay? Getting more about our Pharazôn there than we are Tarmiriel. And last of all, the mounting wave, green and cold, plumed with foam, climbing over the land, took to its bosom Tarmiriel the queen, fairer than silver or ivory or pearls. Don't see anything there that says ebony, but that's neither here nor there, I suppose. Okay, so in all of a 1,500-page legendarium, as I said, she gets about 2 sentences, maybe you could say 3 sentences, maybe 4. And most of those sentences talk about her dying, or they're talking about how she casts light on the more important character of our Pharazôn. And this is the role they give to a person of color. And they're telling us, after they do this, after they give this non-essential canon character to a black person, to a black actress, they're telling us that Tolkien is for everyone. So with all this in mind, you have to wonder, if all the squealing NPC Rings of Power enjoyers out there are so emphatic that Tolkien is for everyone, well, why isn't Gil-galad black? Why isn't Elrond black? Why isn't Galadriel black? Why is she still all lily white, as Alan from the Prancing Pony podcast put it? And by the way, why is Arondir played by such a light-skinned person of color? Why isn't he played by a dark-skinned Nigerian or Ghanaian? If what we're told is true, that Tolkien is for everyone and must reflect the entire world. Well, if we want to stop being a little snide about it and we want to seriously answer those questions, let's go back to the anonymous Amazon insider quote from the start of the video. The $1 billion Rings of Power series will determine the future of Amazon Prime. The reason why it's going to succeed is because the executives at Amazon need it to succeed. If it doesn't succeed, there's going to be a big question from Andy Jassy and the board. If we can't take this piece of IP and make it successful, why is Amazon Studios even here? It has to succeed. There's no option. So the simple answer to why Galadriel is still blonde and blue-eyed, and why Gil-galad is still white, and Elrond, and all the important characters are still lily white, is because white libtard showrunners like Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne and Jewish execs at Amazon like Andy Jassy know that Tolkien is in fact not for everyone. Tolkien is as much for everyone as the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is for everyone, as the Mahabharata is for everyone. They all know that. And they know for the time being, that's a very important part here, if they really made a show that did assume Tolkien is for everyone, no one would watch. Or at least a very large chunk of the true, literate, and informed Tolkien fans wouldn't. And there are still millions of them out there. And much to their chagrin at Amazon, they still need those millions of people to tune in order to get the numbers and ratings they require to justify the god-awfully bloated budget. So what they did is they offered Tolkien fans a silent nudge, nudge, wink, wink bargainer deal. They kept stringing them along, and they kept just introducing a little bit of the diversification at a time. They didn't hit you over the head with it right from the beginning. They kept everything close to their vest. They kept show reveals very minimal. Trailers didn't show much. And they did that on purpose. And what they were trying to mind control everyone into thinking is, you let us have black female dwarves and black hobbits and black elves, and we'll let you keep all your beloved canon or main characters, and we'll let them be exactly how you know they look. Galadriel can still be a pretty blonde girl. For now, Gil-galad can still be a gallant, tall, European male. Elrond can still be white as well, provided you don't complain too much about all the other ways you are losing your favorite tale to the larger societal campaign of anti-whiteness. Again, none of this is happening to Chinese fables. None of this is happening to Asian Indian legends. It's not happening to the Jewish tale of Moses. It's only happening to us. It is a distinctly targeted campaign against Europeans and their tales. So if you let us abolish a big chunk of Middle-earth's whiteness, we'll let you keep a little too. Well, what people did is they turned around and gave them the middle finger. They're sick of this crap, and they threw the deal right back in Amazon's face. So Amazon is now in damage control, and it's all hands on deck and time to start firing all the anti-racist munitions they can find at Tolkien fans, because of course it is. That's what they do every time. When you don't take the deal, they go after you, and they go right for the jugular. So like I told you in the Tolkien versus Progressive series, this is yet another step in the inevitable subversion of Tolkien's original tales. Each subsequent generation commandeers the stories and adds more of its own sensibilities to it, whether or not those sensibilities make any sense or not. So it started with Arwen Warrior Princess in Peter Jackson's films, stealing the Fort of Bruinen scene, and now it has progressed to black hobbits and black female dwarves, and soon it will be a black Aragorn. Oh, wait a second. Seems we're already there. Yep, black Aragorn already lives. Or as Bilbo would have called him, the Din Dúnedain. See what I did there? All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again sometime. You never can tell when.
Step down, watching you